Hi, everyone. Welcome to Reclaiming My Power. I Choose Me, episode 2. Yay! Welcome, welcome. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're either already on your journey or on your way to reclaiming your power and choosing you. I support you all the way. It's not an easy journey, but a worthwhile journey when you get there. So, welcome, welcome. So glad you're here. And so, on today's episode, we're going to discuss ways in which you can reclaim your power and choose yourself and why that's important. It's so important and it's so liberating when you do get to that point. So, some of the examples, I can give a couple examples of how I reclaimed my power and chose myself. One of them that was really important to me is utilizing my voice, taking the power back from the molesters that abused me when I was a child. For years, I lived in silence, or I kept that in. I didn't talk about it. I was ashamed. And I've mentioned this in previous episodes that I was ashamed. I was felt guilty and all those emotions. And when I really started to process, I realized because I did nothing wrong, I decided, you know what? There's no reason for me to be ashamed. I'm going to talk about it because the more I was silent about it, the more I was down or felt guilty. They had all the power, so I took the power back. I chose me, and by taking that power back, I started talking about it, not for sympathy, not for pity, but because I'm confident in my truth and the fact that I did nothing wrong. And so that's one of the ways in which I reclaimed my power. Another example would be uh, I no longer go to environments that make me uncomfortable, that make me anxious or gives me anxiety, or where I don't feel wanted or appreciated. I don't do that. I have my own space. My the way I look at it now is I have my own space, whether it's at a hotel, whether it's an apartment, a house, wherever. If I'm paying for that hotel, that's my space for the moment. If I'm paying rent at a house, that's my space. And so, why would I subject myself to an environment that makes me uncomfortable when I have my own space? I'm perfectly comfortable being around me. So that's another example of how I've chosen myself, how I've reclaimed my power from just certain situations and chose myself. I I didn't get to this point. It wasn't an easy journey. It wasn't an overnight process. So how I got to this point of reclaiming my power and choosing me was I didn't like the way I felt. I was sad all the time. I was internally. I functioned on the outside, but on the inside, I was broken. Something felt off. Something felt different. I didn't feel right. I didn't feel whole. I didn't, but because I was so busy, I didn't know who I was. I didn't have time to process really. And so I was just existing. I was just existing, literally not living life or not living in the moment, just going through the motions. And it was exhausting. It was exhausting because I was looking at everyone else, just excited about their lives, living life. I would be on vacation, but not really living in the moment, just going through the motions. And so certain things just didn't feel right. It didn't feel natural. I was anxious all the time, dealt with anxiety all of the time, uh, was anxious in certain situations around certain, people, just didn't feel right. And I felt weak. I felt less than at times because people would make comments about me or to my face, and they would say it in a joking manner, but some words hurt. And I think because of everything that I went through, it made me a little bit more sensitive. So I was sensitive, even in joking situations, and certain situations didn't need to be joked about. And so I didn't like the fact that I didn't speak up for myself in certain situations. I just allowed things to happen. I allowed people the freedom of being able to say what they wanted to say. And it didn't feel right. It didn't feel right. It started really taking a toll on me. And so excuse me, I started feeling uncomfortable. I started questioning who I was. I it's so strange because I've always seen myself as a confident, strong person, but weak in certain areas at the same time, if that makes any sense. Um, I struggled with that. I struggled with the confidence and the strength, but then the timidness and the sadness and the loneliness behind closed doors or internally. And so it really, really started to take a toll. And I mentioned in previous episode, I had several defining moments. But I think what really, really helped me was when I took my I Choose Me cruise back in 2018. That was the best thing that I could have done at that point to number one, get away, have that time to myself, turn the noise off. Turn the noise off. Yes, there was natural noise, but I got an opportunity to turn the noise off in my head and just breathe and just be, purge, cry, write, but just to sit still and figure out what it is that, or figure out who I was, what was making me tick, what was causing me so much anxiety. And that was the journey. That was the time that this whole journey really, really started to take effect, take flight, as they would say. On my I Choose Me cruise, I spent time with me, talking to myself, journaling. I spent time in meditation. I spent time talking to God. I spent time really, really reflecting. And I made like several lists. I made a list of some of my experiences, life experiences that I felt impacted me in a negative way. So I made a list of those things. I made a list of people in my life that I needed to forgive. People that I don't want to say I was really holding a grudge. Maybe it was a grudge behind the scenes, but I feel like there are people that I really needed to free myself from. One would be my biological father. That one was a tough one for me. My biological father knew who I was. I knew who he was, but he didn't want me. He didn't want me. So that was a hard pill to have to swallow. When, I was younger, he lived with my grandmother, and I would call. I can remember moments of calling, and he would answer the phone, and maybe small talk, if any conversation at all, and he would give the phone to my grandmother. That's rejection like no other. That's rejection like no other, because that was painful to know that he knew who I was but didn't want me. That was a painful pill to swallow, and I dealt with that, and I still deal with it. It's not as impactful as it was, but it was very hard. So he was one of the ones that I really had to forgive. And it's so crazy because in 1997 he had mentioned that he wanted to talk to me about something, and we never got a chance to talk because he passed 2 weeks later. And so I'll never know why he wanted to talk to me. But yeah, that was hard to deal with. So that was one of the ones I truly, truly, truly had to forgive. Not too many people know that hurt that I dealt with. I think I would have rather maybe not even know who he was than to know who he was and him know who I was and not be wanted. So that rejection really hurt. And so I had my forgiveness list. I had my list of everything that I felt, went wrong, or all of my negative experiences, I should say, things that I just needed to address. And then I started listing, I had another list about my qualities, about what I loved about myself. I'd never taken the time to do that. And wow, my list, it was impressive. It was impressive because I started looking at things that I had accomplished. I started searching my heart, really, focusing on my heart. And the first thing was my heart was in the right place. But more than anything, I had so many, well, heart being in the right place was the most important, but I had so many positive qualities and so many uh, things that I had accomplished. And, when I started looking at those things, I'm like, wow, I deserve better. I deserve to feel better. I deserve to look at myself better, to view myself better. Because when you start viewing yourself, you start seeing those attributes. You start seeing your positive qualities and what you bring to the table. You start walking and looking different. And that really helped to change the dynamic of how I allowed others to treat me and talk to me. And so, but going back to that list, to one of the lists, all the trauma that I went through, the people that I needed to forgive, once I put all of that, once I poured it out, and it was a process because I didn't do it in one day. Every day that I was away on that cruise, I had more to add to that list. And so I felt like I was able to get a lot of it out. I was able to identify a lot of things. And I subsequently burned the list. That was my way of putting that behind me and really, really, starting the journey of moving forward. Wasn't an easy process. That just because I did it that way didn't mean that, oh, that fixed everything. But at least it opened up a conversation with myself on how to move forward, how to identify certain things and then move forward. So I, the anxiety, the people that I allowed to put me down, those are all some of the reasons why, it helped get me to the point of reclaiming my power and choosing myself. The identifying who I was really, really, really helped. So what I'm saying to you is to start the process of reclaiming your power and choosing yourself, it first has to start with who you are. You have to know your value. It may take you going on a fast. It may take you taking an I choose me trip. I personally chose to go on a cruise because I felt it was safer. Everyone on that cruise had to be identified in some way. So I just I just felt safer being on that cruise. And even though it went to three or four different ports like Honduras and I believe Belize and uh, I think Mahogany Bay, Honduras, and a few other places, beautiful places. But because I was by myself, I didn't venture out too far. I stayed by the port, and I would get off the ship, and I would find a quiet place, and I would write, and I would read, and so it was really good to just have that time with me. So something like that is what I would suggest that you do. Just have that time with you, quiet the noise, turn social media off, turn the TV off, and figure out who you are. Date yourself, enjoy yourself. I love me so much. I love spending time with me. I am funny. I know that sounds crazy because I, how are you funny if you're by yourself? But I am. I just love spending time with me. I love that space where I can just reflect, have quiet time, and just, you know, enjoy myself. I have a shower curtain. We have a shower curtain in our home, and I call it my shower curtain because it says, God says, I am precious, chosen, lovely, it special. I think I said special already, but those are affirmations. When I'm brushing my teeth, I look in the mirror and I said, hey, I look in the mirror and I say, hey, beautiful, you are. And then I'll say, I am. So those are the ways in where, those are the ways in which I reinforce and reaffirm who I am, or affirm who I am. And so you also have to question. So you take the time to figure out who you are, learn who you are. Take the time to analyze what you deserve. See, reclaiming my power, I choose me, means something different for everyone. It could be, if you're in a situation uh, where, let's say it's a marriage, I would never tell anyone to leave their spouse. This is not what this is. But if you're in a marriage and it's one sided, there's no communication, there's no compassion, there's no respect there, you're just existing, you're just roommates. You at some point have to take the time to decide what it is that you deserve and what it is that you want for the rest of your life. Is that what you see for the rest of your life, being in a relationship where it's one-sided, you're doing, but you're not getting anything in return, and you're just letting life pass by? That would be an example of you taking the time to analyze what you deserve, who you are, what you want for the rest of your life, and making that decision to choose you, whatever that looks like, whatever that looks like. And so that would be an example. It could also be, another example would be you working, living to work. I referenced this in my last episode. You living to work as opposed to working to live. Living to work means that that's all you do. That's all you do. You're going to a job and you're working, you're giving them all of your time. I know because I've been there, I've done that. You're giving them all of your time. And so by the time you leave work, there's nothing left for you. How does that give you any fulfillment? How do you live? How are you living if all you're doing is working? And I understand bills need to be paid. I get it. Trust me. I get it. But when you're at work, and I told someone today, when you're at work, you give your 100%. The rest is yours. The rest is yours. So that's what I mean by working. You should be working to live and not living just to work. Work to live and enjoy life. Enjoy life. So that's another way of just reclaiming your power from work, from from living to work, and choosing you, choosing your happiness, your mental well-being, your joy, your peace. My apparel is out now, and this particular shirt says, reclaiming my power. I choose my joy. I choose my sanity. I choose my peace. I choose me, reclaiming my power. I wear this, I try to wear this all the time as a reminder, as a billboard, that that's how we should be living. Our joy, our peace, our sanity, our health, all of those things should be priority. So those are ways in which you can reclaim your power and choose you. The time is now. The time is now. You have to, and it's not an easy journey, as I mentioned, but you have to start somewhere, because life is fleeting. Life is flying by so fast. You don't want to live with regrets. That was one of the things that was so important for me, is I felt like I wasted so much time being in that rut, being in that place, and not not putting myself first in certain situations. I can't get that time back. That time is gone. But I could have stayed in that place where I was just down all the time, just bitter and just miserable. And some of the things that I went through, it's valid. Those are valid emotions and reactions to some of the things that I went through. But staying there, not okay. Not okay. So every once in a while, I do think about all the time that I wasted, because the way I feel now, oh, if I had this freedom and this peace, this joy, if I knew then that this is how I would be feeling, I would have been here a lot sooner. So I'm encouraging you to start the journey now. Your time is now. You have time. I have a blog on my website called I See You, titled I See You, and it's also on my social media. And I could have just left it on my blog, but I wanted it's a message that I really wanted to resonate with people. It was an important message to me, and if you get a chance, please listen to it if you haven't already. The time is now. You have time. Every breath you're blessed with, every heartbeat is an opportunity for you to choose yourself. So reclaim your power from whatever it is. Again, it means something to everyone else. It means something different to everyone. Whatever it means to you, reclaim your power from it. Choose you. It's not too late. It's not too late. Do something different. Do something different. Look in the mirror and affirm yourself. List 5 qualities about yourself, positive qualities that as you're looking in the mirror you see. It could be features. It could be something you think about, internally, one of your attributes, one of your characteristics. And every morning, start listing those things. Look in the mirror and list 5 different things. Put stickies on your mirror to remind yourself of who you are. That's how you start. That's how you start to choose you. Stand up for yourself in certain situations. Don't let people put you down. Who are they? You deserve better. So reclaim your power and choose you. Okay? I'm rooting for you. So one of the things how I want to end my episode is just listing something that I'm most grateful for. So today, after analyzing or deciding on how I wanted this episode to go, I think one of the things I am most grateful for is being able to live in the moment. Compared to how it was before, when I was so stressed and so uptight about any and everything, I didn't get to really live in the moment. Had great fun experiences like Family Feud and all these different vacations and wonderful experiences. But a lot of it just flew by because I wasn't living in the moment. So that's what I'm grateful for now, being able to recognize certain things. The sun shines differently for me now. The sun's always been there, but now I'm actually seeing the beauty in it and how it shines so differently for me, and seeing the light. So that's what I'm most grateful for.
So Nandi, quick question.
This is my producer, Yvonne.
When you're saying living in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
how do you truly start envisioning to live in the moment when you realized the time has passed and you regretted it? Like you said, you've been so many life experiences. What is some examples that you could have done better and what you're doing now?
Good question. Good question. What I'm learning to do now is wherever I am, I try to. So I tell my family to do this. Like if we're on vacation, I'll stop them dead in their tracks and I'll say, okay, what do you feel? What do you see? What do you smell? What do you hear? Because that gives you an opportunity to stop and really analyze where you are, what you're doing, and whether you're on vacation or you're at, a garden looking at flowers. I feel like when you stop and you really answer those questions, what do you see, feel, touch, hear, smell? You're stopping and you're living in the moment. You're acknowledging the moment. You're seeing the moment, smelling the moment, and it's easier to remember that. Later on, your mind will take you back there. Oh, you know what? When I was at such and such, this is what I remembered smelling. This is what I remembered hearing. So that's how I to answer your question. Did that answer your question?
I like your answer because there are studies that said humans remember how they feel more than what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yes.
you remember what you ate last night? Or do you remember how you feel about the food you ate last night?
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think that's very profound because that takes me back to, some of the traumatic events that I went through when I was younger. I may not be able to remember dates. I may not be able to remember the entire time frame, but I do remember how it made me feel. And that's a feeling that I'll have, for the rest of my life. So that, I think that's a good example of, yeah. So thank you for that. And one other thing I wanted to say, my apparel, I did reference some of my apparel and I have some here in the background, but you can access my apparel link or my apparel shop from my website, which is I choose me, period, spelled out, .com. That will take you to my store. And I have mugs, I have t-shirts, I do have phone cases. So please, when you have an opportunity, please go onto my store. I even have, I did mention phone cases. And so please feel free to check it out. Thank you so much for joining me today. Remember, your time is now. Reclaim your power and choose you. Thank you for joining. Have a good